Hello and welcome to Northwest Newsweek. It became official on Wednesday. Canada's Parliament has dissolved and the run-up to the federal election has begun. It's slated to be a busy fall as the candidates jockey to represent their ridings in Ottawa come October. And in the two Thunder Bay area ridings, the candidates say they're ready to go. Corey Nordstrom has more.
Now that the writ has dropped, the confirmed candidates for Thunder Bay Superior North are the NDP's Annabette Achny-Penescom, Liberal Patty Hajdu, Bruce Heyer of the Greens, Yousef Konjari of the People's Party of Canada, and the Conservatives' Frank Poulia, all vying to represent the riding. Hajdu, the incumbent, says from her canvassing, people's viewpoints have changed and are focused more on the environment this time around, to which other candidates concur.
In Northern Ontario and representing many communities along the north shore of Lake Superior, obviously the high lake levels have been a large conversation this summer no matter where I travel, and people are worried. They're worried about the state of the environment, they're worried about their own futures and how it's interconnected with environmental change.
I needed to hear it from the people. The concerns about housing, about employment sustainability, climate change, and healthcare.
Climate catastrophe, climate challenge, climate emergency is the Green Party. For people who think that's an important issue, and that should be all of us really, I think it'll be a big factor.
Longtime Thunder Bay City Councillor Frank Poulia is also hoping to take the riding on the city's north side, something that historically has been a tall task for Conservatives.
Even though this riding, has not voted Conservative for a long time, people know me, they know what to expect. They are disappointed in the current leadership. They're looking for change to the extent that they feel that I can represent them.
On the ballot for Thunder Bay Atikokan is Andrew Hartnell of the People's Party, Amanda Matajong of the Greens, Liberal Marcus Pulowski, Conservative Linda Ridholm, and the NDP's Yuksem Wan. Without an incumbent to face off with, the NDP's Wan says it's even more important to show the voters who she is.
And I'm a teacher at Confederation College. I've been in the education sector for 20 years, and to be able to bring that knowledge and the experience to the forefront as being an advocate for Northern Ontario, for all the communities and the people, has really been an easy transition for me.
After wrapping up her final term on City Council last year, Conservative candidate Linda Ridholm has been counting down the days to begin this campaign.
Now we can really go put up our signs, we can advertise, we can, make the people more aware that there is a very important election coming up in October.
The Green Party's Matajong is making her second foray into politics after running in the last provincial election. Pulowski is making his first election run for the Liberal Party. The federal election takes place October 21st. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Campaigning has also begun west of Thunder Bay in Kenora. The Liberals hope to retain that riding as well after winning it from the Conservatives in 2015. But unlike previous years, which saw seasoned political veterans facing off against one another, this election has an incumbent taking on a group of political newcomers. Adam Riley has more.
It's one of the biggest electoral districts in the country, and so far there are 4 parties with confirmed candidates for the Kenora riding. They are Eric Malillo for the Conservatives, Bob Nault with the Liberals, Kiersey Ralco for the Greens, and Rudy Turtle carrying the banner for the New Democrats. Malillo, a former campaign staffer for now Kenora Rainy River MPP Greg Rickford, has been steadily campaigning the region since being acclaimed in April. His primary focus is unseating incumbent Bob Nault, who returned to politics in 2015 after a 10-year hiatus. Nault says as the incumbent, he has a record and stands by both his accomplishments and failures.
Every government makes mistakes. Everybody has limitations. But in the reality of things, we have an economy that's booming. We have the lowest unemployment rate. We've created more jobs in the last 4 years than any government has in decades. And so we have a record we can be proud of. But that doesn't mean we don't have our challenges.
Nault is also facing competition from Kenora City Councillor turned Green Party candidate Kiersey Ralco. And while she has less than a year of experience as a councillor under her belt, she says her career so far in municipal politics is what sparked her interest in running after being approached by the Greens.
Obviously, it was not my ideal plan to run for city council and then run a federal campaign 1 year later, but being on city council for the better part of a year now has shown me that a number of the issues our constituents are really concerned about simply do not fall within the municipal purview. So I'm interested in trying to make a higher level difference.
Rounding out the list of confirmed party candidates is Rudy Turtle for the NDP. Turtle is best known as the chief of Grassy Narrows First Nation and made headlines earlier this May when the signing of an agreement between the community and the federal government was cancelled at the last second. A final list of candidates is expected to be released by Elections Canada on September 30th. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Meanwhile, those in charge of the voting process are busy staffing returning offices and making sure all the eligible voters are ready to go. In fact, voting by special ballot has already begun for the 2 Thunder Bay ridings. Corey Nordstrom reports.
Over the next 6 weeks, voters will decide the next government of Canada, and it's busy times for those in charge of running the polls. Returning offices are now being set up, with special voting already available. In Thunder Bay Superior North, it's located inside County Fair Plaza, and for Thunder Bay Rainy River, the office is in the Thunder Centre beside the T-Baytel store. Returning Officer Kevin O'Donnell says their staff across the riding will have a busy job come October.
178 polls in about 80 locations. Advanced polls will be happening Thanksgiving weekend, so the 11th, 12th, and 13th and 14th of October. Those locations are scattered throughout the region.
Though not a straight line, the city is divided roughly around the Harbour Expressway. In Thunder Bay Rainy River, there are about 62,000 registered voters. O'Donnell notes that anyone looking to confirm their spot on the voter list can visit their website.
We have an online elections.ca, the website, where people can check to see that they're on the list, and if they see that there are changes that need to be made, coming down here is probably their best option.
In one of the country's most vast ridings, just under 65,000 registered voters reside in Thunder Bay Superior North, spanning as far east as the Pic-Mobert First Nation. Returning Officer Dale Mason explains when residents should expect their voter cards in the mail.
The voter cards are being mailed starting on September 25th. There's a weekend shortly after that, so I would think that the first week in October is when people should expect to see their cards.
New this year, Elections Canada will be hosting a 5-day mini service center at Lakehead University for any eligible voter, staff, or student to fill out their ballot.
For their home riding, whatever they have ID for, so if you're a student at Lakehead, but you're really from Saskatoon, then you can vote at that poll here in Thunder Bay.
Both ridings will need to hire hundreds of staff for Election Day, October 21st. Interested applicants can visit the elections.ca website. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Some bad news for the forestry sector in Kenora. Kenora Forest Products announced it will temporarily suspend its sawmill operation. The announcement came on Wednesday. The mill, which employs more than 115 people, will shut down on September 23rd. The company cites weak domestic and global lumber markets and a 20% lumber duty which has been imposed by the United States as reasons for the closure. The company hasn't indicated when operations will resume. Officials with the town of Fort Frances say they're working toward a resolution that will allow them to collect outstanding taxes owed by the new owners of the town's pulp mill. Earlier this week, the town posted notices of seizure along the plant property, saying it intended to confiscate heavy equipment on the site before the mill's new owner, Rivers Edge Developments, could sell it. Mayor June Call says the company owes the town about $437,000 in taxes. There have been reports that the owner, Justice Veldman, had reached an agreement to pay the town, but according to Call, there's been very little contact with Veldman. She says CAO Doug Brown has only spoken to Veldman's brother.
He has not talked personally to Justice as far as I know, and I have not been in any conversation with either one of them. I hear on the radio this morning that Justice says that there's a plan in place between them and the town, and that's not entirely what's happening or what has happened so far. There is a plan by the town being made up for payment, but that has not been finalized at all yet.
Rivers Edge purchased the property earlier this summer. Officials with the company could not be reached for comment. It's been less than a month since the CIBC in Terrace Bay closed its doors, leaving the community without a brick-and-mortar bank. The decision to close the bank was made in November with little advance warning given to residents or town officials. Community members rallied hard to try to convince the financial institution to change its decision, but to no avail. The former bank building remains vacant, with a sign directing residents to the nearest branch in Thunder Bay. The property is for sale. The only remnants of the financial institution is an ATM, which doesn't allow deposits, located in a store in the Simcoe Plaza, which CIBC agreed to install after pressure from the community. Mayor Jody Davis says the past month has been tough, but the town is working to attract a new bank.
Coping is a good word. I think the community is coping as best as it can with the facilities and the things they have. Certainly nobody's happy. It's an inconvenience to everybody, and we continue to work forward to get another banking type institution such as a credit union into the community. It will take some time, but we're working on it.
We had a major financial institution leave the community. Conventional wisdom would probably dictate that, you know, if a bank is leaving, why would somebody else move in? But we've seen it in other places, so why not at least try? And the community, I think, really wants us to try, which is why this is why we're going through this exercise.
Hall notes the township has put out a request for expression of interest, which will be active for several weeks. Whatever responses come back will dictate the next steps in the process. A new water treatment facility in the remote First Nation of Abamatung has local leadership hoping the long-standing boil water advisory could come to an end. Corey Nordstrom has the details.
There is still minor work yet to do, but independent tests from the water treatment facility in Edmonton have passed with flying colors. The $10.2 million project, which should be complete by late fall, represents a new approach to water treatment in the First Nation after the old way was making things worse for community members.
The raw water that comes from the lake contains organics, so when they treat it, disinfection that they use is called liquid chlorine. It reacts and creates a byproduct called trihalomethanes, and they're not good.
The community declared a state of emergency on July 12th of this year, seeking immediate government assistance. They had found staggering amounts of trihalomethanes, or THMs, which have been related to health effects such as cancer.
We're thinking, there's people who have died of ovarian cancer or bladder cancer. Did that have anything to do with, so we're going to look into that, see with the people living in here.
The water issues are seen throughout the community, namely in their school, where brand new water fountains have never been used. And when locals need drinking water, there is only a finite amount with prices that are shockingly high. But the chief isn't sure residents will trust the water when they get the okay that the new facility is working as it should.
From what I have heard, it'll be a good plant. But after 18 years of boil water advisory, I don't know how many people are just going to pick up a glass of water and start drinking right out of the tap.
And it may take a significant amount of time before testing comes back positive.
It's still not right yet, so they're going to be going through that testing for about another month or so before it'll be commissioned and also the boil water be lifted.
Only Edmonton Chief and Council can lift the 18-year boil water advisory. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
When we come back, the first graduating classes of nurses at Oshkie Wenjack received their official nursing pins. Stay tuned, we'll have details after the break. Oshkosh Wenjack celebrated its first ever graduating class of practical nursing students on Wednesday. The handful of new nurses received their official nursing pins before heading out into their communities to start giving back. Alana Pickrell reports.
11 new practical nurses completed the final step as they walked across the stage during their graduation ceremony. This is the first class of practical nurses who have graduated out of the Oshkosh Wenjack program. Health Disciplines Program Coordinator Kara Morso says this program will really help change lives in the North.
So now we're welcoming 11 brand new practical nurses. So this changes the health dynamic possibilities for the North. We're able to fill our communities with people from those communities to work in a capacity to care for people in those communities.
Although it seems like a small class, Morso says it's the numbers they expected for their first ever graduation. She adds the small class size makes it resemble a more family-type environment for the students. Shannon Mamakwa, a graduate from Pikangikum First Nation, says she experienced a lot of love and acceptance during the 2-year course.
It feels surreal, and it was very hard and intense for all of us, but we kept encouraging each other and pushed each other, supported each other.
Friends and family filled the ballroom in support of the new graduates. Martine Kanakizik says she has wanted to be a nurse since she was a little girl, and the program at Oshkosh Wenjack really helped make her dream a reality.
The way their program is set up, it gives us time to be with our family, and then there's lots of support, and because the class is small and it's we're the first RPNs, so I had a good time there.
Now that the first ever graduating class has officially walked across the stage and received their pins, Oshkosh Wenjack is hoping to bring even more nurses to the North. Applications are open for the January 2020 start date. Alana Pickrell, TBT News.
The operator of the pulp mill in Terrace Bay has quietly set aside its plan to convert the facility into one that produces dissolving grade pulp for manufacturing rayon. When it announced the mill when it acquired the mill, in 2012, East Indian company Aditya Birla planned to spend $250 million over 2 years to move away from the production of northern bleached softwood kraft pulp. But due to current market conditions, the company has decided against the conversion for now. The mill employs 360 people with an additional 375 Woodlands operations jobs. The change in direction hasn't prevented the company from investing in the facility. So far, $114 million has been spent on improvements, and they're currently in the middle of another major capital project, the installation of a new $9 million lime kiln. The work has generated an additional 85 construction jobs. Well, coming up after the break, students from Anishinaabe Nation communities attending school in Thunder Bay familiarize themselves with the city and its amenities. Now that school is back in session, it's back to the grind for many students. But for a large number of Thunder Bay high schoolers, they're away from their home community for the very first time. The Anishinaabe-Aski Nation held its annual orientation event on Tuesday to help ease that transition. Corey Nordstrom has more.
Over 300 students from all of Thunder Bay's high schools gathered for the annual orientation day hosted by the Anishinaabe-Aski Nation. The day is meant to give the kids aged 13 and up a chance to see what opportunities Thunder Bay holds and introduce them to services they may use. In his remarks, NAN Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler stressed the importance of learning what's available for the students to make their time here as enjoyable as possible.
Their communities are quite small, so I think it's important that we do these types of events to ensure that they have some awareness in terms of what's available in the city and how they can utilize the services that are out here.
Well, I like it because you get to sit around, kind of meet new people, socialize, see all the different activities that happen in Thunder Bay, and then yeah.
Awesome. What do you like about it?
I like how there's a lot of opportunities that outside schools can have when they come here.
Many in the room are experiencing city living for the first time. For those who are returning to the yearly orientation, they say knowing what's out there helped with the adjustment outside of school.
At first I was nervous, due to the bigger classroom sizes and whatnot. Now I just think it's I don't know, I just basically got used to it the longer I stayed here.
With multiple booths set up by employment service agencies, some of the students are planning to make use of their new contacts around the city.
It gives you a lot of different options of what to do. I'm looking for a job after my birthday there. I don't really know what yet, but this probably will help me.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
The Ontario Native Women's Association recently held its 4th annual powwow in honor of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And while the National Inquiry has wrapped up and handed down calls to justice, as Ian Kaufman tells us, there's still a lot of work left to be done.
A women's drum group from Grassy Narrows served as host drum this year in a powwow led largely by Indigenous women. Organized by the Ontario Native Women's Association, or ONWA, the event is a chance to show that those who have been lost are not forgotten.
Today's powwow is a really important event for us to remember all of those sisters, our mothers, grandmothers, aunties, daughters, nieces, who have been stolen from our families, those missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls who have been taken far too soon, to let them know that they're not forgotten, even though they've moved on into the spirit world.
For ONWA Executive Director Coralie McGuire-Surrett, the powwow is also about moving forward. She was personally touched by the epidemic of violence against Indigenous women when her cousin was found murdered in Winnipeg.
From my family's perspective, it's also about moving beyond her death and towards healing and acknowledging her children and her grandchildren and her sisters and her mother who are still here. And we as a family continue to focus in on our future generations, and that we create places of safety for our children, for our daughters, for her daughter, for her grandson. Events like today continue to bring her to the forefront so that she's not forgotten, and neither are her children.
It's the first of these powwows to be held since the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls released its final report. That report contains calls to justice aimed at governments, police services, corporations, and everyday Canadians. Lavelle Harvard says it was important to see participation in the event from across the Thunder Bay community.
We have Patty Haidu, our local MP. We have the local chief of police, representatives from the mayor, local representatives from the First Nation. That's exactly the kind of cooperation and collaboration that we need in order to end the violence, because everybody has a role to play and everybody needs to pick up their share of that burden so that we can really make a change moving forward.
Lavelle Harvard says ONWA plans to continue the powwow as an annual tradition. Ian Kaufman, TBT News.
Well, that'll do it for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.